Hey y'all, it's me Alex. Today I have another Duping the Vibes video for y'all. Today I realized that Colourpop has released a little mauve monochromatic palette, and normally their monochromatic palettes don't draw me in too terribly much, but I look at that and my heart goes a little sing-songy, and I think it is quite beautiful. However, if there is one thing in this world that I need less than male opinions, it is more mauve eyeshadow, because I have a lot of it. Mauve is kind of my neutral-ish, like, because I love the pinks and the purples, and this is very neutral for me. When I want to go a little bit more neutral, a little more natural, this kind of what I go for. So I've gone through all my eyeshadow palettes to go through and see what I have to dupe it, and I recognize that the total value of all the palettes that I'm using in this video is definitely significantly more than what the Colourpop palette is, because yeah, Colourpop is cheap, but I figure me going through all of the palettes that I have to find dupes for this would be significantly cheaper than me going out and buying yet another palette. So anyway, I am going to now take y'all down to my kitchen table where I'm going to show you the swatches of palettes that I think would be a nice little replacement for me getting the Colourpop palette. Okay, so hello, I'm at my kitchen table. I've put down a layer of Too Faced Born This Way concealer over top of my arm, because I'm actually going to be swatching on my right arm because this is the best angle that I could possibly get for this format. And I have a huge tattoo on said arm, so I figure I should probably cover it up with something. Plus, I've been trying to, like, side note, I've been trying to use this up for a long time, and I figure since I've really stayed away from full coverage on my face anymore, this would be a really good way to kind of use it up. Also, pardon my fingernails, they look god-awful. I know, you don't need to tell me. I'm going to fix it. I just can't find my nail polish remover at the moment. So I'm going to just kind of begin with the shades that I know would make a good little thing going on. So I'm actually going to begin with my Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. This one is actually just filled with a lot of different mauve shades, so quite frankly, if you have this palette, you probably don't need the one from Colourpop, especially because this one is significantly more expensive than the one from Colourpop. Ooh, that's gonna make some awful background noise. So I'm going to actually take the first three, well, these are the only three matte shades in this entire palette. That would be Strange, Limit, and Nooner. And I think that that would be a really good kind of dupe for the first three shades that you'll see in the Colourpop palette. Bringing that back down, I'm going to go over it with one more layer just because Urban Decay shadows, especially the ones in this palette, are very, very dry. So they're really not going to swatch that well. But I do think that they perform pretty decently on the eyes. They're pretty light, as you can see, so that's not like the greatest shadows in the entire world, but I do think that for the purpose of this palette, which is a bit more neutral, you don't exactly need the most pigmented shades in the entire world. I think this is a pretty good start to this palette. Okay, so now we are moving into the middle shades of the palette. The middle row is all shimmers. So there is one shimmer that I think would go quite well, and it is from the Colourpop X's and O's palette. It's this one up in the top left corner called Know Better. I'm a huge fan of this shade just like in general, but I think it matches the lightest shimmer in the Making Mauves palette quite well. So I'm just going to go ahead and swatch that. You can kind of see how that is. I'm gonna go on with another layer because we're not, you know, trying to give accurate product shots. This is more how I would apply it on my eyes. So that is what that looks like. Next, to kind of match the center shade, I'm going in with my Anastasia Beverly Hills Self-Made palette. This is actually my Pan That palette of 2020. And behold the progress that I have made. I'm going to use the shade Pink Champagne up here, again in the top left. Well, first of all, this is probably one of my favorite shades in this whole palette. And I also think that it does a really good job. It's a little bit chunkier, a little bit more metallic, which I think goes a bit more with the style of shimmers that Colourpop is putting in their palette. So let me just go on ahead. Okay, and you can kind of see how that one is significantly more pigmented than the previous for shades. It's a little bit darker, but this is honestly one of my favorite mauve pink shades of all time. Okay, and then for the last shimmer shade, we're actually going back into the Naked 3 palette. I am thinking that Trick right here would actually be a really good shade for this, because if you look in the palette, if you look in the Colourpop palette, that's a little bit more of a warm toned kind of pink, a little bit less on the cool tone side. So I'm just going to go in with that one. And I think the shimmers in this palette are significantly more pigmented than the mattes. So as you can see, you're gonna get a lot more color payoff from that. Okay, now we're going to go back into the mattes and we're going to go in with some deeper shades. The next matte is a little bit more on the warm toned side, and I didn't quite have a shade that would match it entirely, but if we look in the Balm Nude Tude palette, I was thinking that this little shade here, Sultry, even though it's not quite as warm toned as the one in the Colourpop palette, it still matches the general like tone range. Like it's not a lot darker or a lot lighter than that. So here we go. And I really like the Balm shadows. I just wish that they would kind of come up with palettes that appeal to me a little bit more. Okay, and that is really not a straight swatch, but I'm not straight either. So I think that this is pretty good. And then next we have a little bit more of a purpley, like deeper mauve shade. So I'm going into the Colourpop Good Sport palette, and I'm actually going to choose the shade Flow in the bottom right corner here. I think that this would be a pretty good match for what I think the Making Mauves palette is going for. It might be a little bit brighter, but honestly, I prefer brighter colors as opposed to more muted tones, so I think that at least for my purposes, this would be a good choice. And you can definitely see that this is where things start to go a little bit different from what you would see in the palette, but I think that for the kind of looks that I would want to do, I like this shade a lot more than what they put in there. And then for the last shade, they had kind of a more grayish shade, and I didn't have anything quite exact, but if you go into the Pretty Much palette, this shade right here in the bottom left corner, even though it definitely leans a lot more gray than what's in the palette, I think it'll go pretty much, again, for the purposes of what I'm looking to do. So here we go. And when it's swatched, it is definitely leaning a bit more on the purple side, so I think that that does a pretty good job. So here are all of the swatches of the shades that I'm using to dupe the Colourpop Making Mauves palette. Now it's back to Alex in her room. Okay, hi, now we are back up here in my room. It is now time for me to show y'all the tutorial on how I got this look using the shadows that I kind of picked out to dupe everything. I'm going to begin with the shade Nooner from my Urban Decay Naked 3 palette, and I'm going to use that as kind of my initial transition shade. And I'm kind of digging into it because this isn't as pigmented as the shadows I would normally go for, but I'm also using a bit of kind of a thicker brush, which is allowing for there to be a bit more pigment there. And I'm really just taking it up and blending it super far into my crease. And I'm kind of smoking it out pretty far. And now I want to move into a little bit more of this shade from the Colourpop Pretty Much palette, and I'm going to put that towards the outer corner. And that's not doing what I want it to. We'll make the same mistake on both sides and then go back and fix it. I wanted that to be the shade that would kind of smoke it out, and then we would layer a darker shade on top of it, but that didn't quite work how I anticipated it. So I'm just going to kind of pack that on and then go back with another shade. Why did I think that would work? What the heck, Alex? So now I'm going to go in with Flow from the Good Sport palette, and I'll use that as kind of my deepening everything up and fixing my problems shade. And I'm going to blend that into my crease a little bit as well. Now for my lid shade, I'm going to take a little bit of glitter glue and put that down just because I really want to use the pink champagne shade from my Self-Made palette. It just pops even more when you put down a glitter glue, and this isn't going to be like a cut crease or anything like that. I just really want to use this shade. And then I'm just going to use the flat end of the brush from the Urban Decay Naked 3 palette, use that in pink champagne, and see how metallic and pigmented I can make it. Look how gorgeous that is. And then I'm just going to, so I can kind of blend it out, I'm going to use a little bit more of Flow from the Good Sport palette on the same brush that I had used it before. And now I'm going to work along my lower lash line. I'm going to take some more of that grayish shade from the Pretty Much palette, and I'm going to kind of use that as the initial shade for my lower lash line. I'm not using every shade I swatched for this just because I don't want to do that for my look today. And then I'm just going to go back with, you guessed it, Flow from the Good Sport palette and use that a bit closer to my lash line. Now for my inner corner highlight, I'm going to go in with my X's and O's palette, and I'm going to use the shade Know Better that's up here in this corner. Just going to pop that on in there, real casual. And finally for my brow bone highlight, I'm going to go in with Strange from the Urban Decay Naked 3. Oh god, that mirror. Now I'm going to show kind of what I'm going to do with the rest of my face just so you can get like a good feel for how the rest of this look is going to go. I'm going to curl my lashes using my Ardell eyelash curler. And for my mascara, I'm going to go in with my Colourpop BFF mascara. This is just their plain black one, and all of the packaging has rubbed off of it. Now I'm going to go in with my base, which is the NYX Bear With Me Tinted Skin Veil in 04 True Beige Buff. That way my face can look a little less red. Now that I kind of have that base down and my face is looking a little flat, I'm going to go in with my Milani Baked Bronzer in 04 Glow. And then for my blush, I'm actually going to use a little bit of Work from Milk Makeup in their little lip and cheek tint, and I kind of just draw it in like cat whiskers and put a little on my nose. And I'm gonna try some new blush techniques, I think, just like learning new ways to apply it and stuff, but I'm gonna just pounce it in with my sponge on the other end of it. And then for my highlight, I'm gonna use this Model's Own Sculpt and Glow highlighter powder in Golden Sand. It's not very golden, so it doesn't really live up to its name, but still gonna use it. Okay, so for my lipstick, I'm going to go in with Luna from Menagerie Cosmetics, because this is such a pretty shade and I love it. It's named after my cat. Okay, so this is my finished little mauve-y look. We're making mauves. Okay, and that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe down below if you want to see more videos from me. And I will see y'all in my next one. I hope you'll have a wonderful day. Bye!